What if I told you that just 1 hour a day could change the rest of your life? 1 hour out of 24, that could separate you from the average, elevate your income, deepen your relationships, and sharpen your mind. This isn't theory, it's a rule, a simple one. And if you understand it, apply it, and protect it, your success becomes inevitable. 1 hour can change everything. It sounds simple, almost too simple. And maybe that's why most people overlook it. They're searching for some grand breakthrough, some miracle that will catapult their life from where they are to where they want to be. But the truth is, real change rarely comes in explosions. It arrives quietly, steadily, in consistent doses. And the most powerful dose of all is 1 hour, just one, used wisely and consistently. You see, people dramatically overestimate what they can do in a day and grossly underestimate what they can accomplish in a year if they gave themselves the gift of one focused hour daily. The idea is not to cram your schedule with more noise, but to dedicate one sacred hour every day to becoming more, to sharpening your edge, to rising above the average. That's what separates the achievers from the drifters, not some magical gene, not a lucky break, but how they spend their invisible hours. Let me show you how this works in the real world. Imagine two individuals. Both wake up at 7 a.m., both go to work, both come home, eat, watch some TV, scroll their phones, and go to bed. On the surface, they live the same life. But let's say one of them, just one, decides to reclaim a single hour every morning from 6 to 7 a.m. They begin to treat this hour as an appointment with their future. They start reading books on leadership, finances, and communication. They jot down thoughts in a journal, track their goals, or study a new language or digital skill. They don't see much change at first. Nobody does in the beginning. But after 30 days, their confidence starts to shift. Their thinking sharpens, their vocabulary grows, their attitude improves. And after 6 months, they speak differently. They walk into rooms differently. They start recognizing patterns others miss, seizing opportunities others ignore. They become a different person, not because they had more time, but because they used their time differently. Now compare that to the second person who wakes up just an hour later, scrolls through the noise of the world before they even get out of bed, and tells themselves every morning, "I'll start tomorrow." That's how lives drift, not in giant mistakes, but in daily neglect. That 1 hour difference may seem small today, but stretch it over a year and you've got 365 hours, more than 9 full work weeks of self-education, self-reflection, or skill development. 9 weeks. You could learn the foundations of a new business model in that time. You could write half a book. You could get certified in a high-income skill. You could turn your body around, improve your relationships, or develop the self-awareness most people never touch in their lifetime. That's not exaggeration. That's math. Here's another real-world example. A young man I once mentored was stuck in a dead-end job, making just above minimum wage. He had every reason to be frustrated, but instead of sulking, he made a decision. He started waking up at 5:30 a.m. and gave himself 1 hour to study digital marketing. Just 1 hour. He didn't enroll in a university or spend thousands on coaching. He found YouTube videos, read blogs, followed experts, and started experimenting. In 6 months, he picked up freelance work. In a year, he doubled his income. By year 2, he had built a small agency and left his job. People looked at his results and said, "You're lucky you found a skill that pays." But they didn't see the 1 hour a day he gave to the becoming, the invisible hours where no one was cheering, clapping, or paying attention. That's where the seeds of success are planted. And here's the beauty of it. You get to choose what you use the hour for. If you're in debt, that hour can be used to learn about money, budgeting, and investing. If your health is falling apart, that hour can be used to work out, prep meals, or learn about nutrition. If your marriage is strained, that hour can become a space for reflection, communication practice, or simply understanding your partner's emotional needs more deeply. The hour is flexible, but its impact is fixed. You show up for it, and it shows up for you, but you must protect it. Treat it like a meeting with the version of you that has already succeeded, because that's exactly what it is. A daily rendezvous with your future. What's fascinating is how quickly momentum builds. At first, you might feel like nothing is happening. You read a chapter, journal a little, or sit in silence thinking, and you wonder, is this really going to change my life? That's the voice of impatience. But stick with it, and in time, the world around you starts to shift. People respond to you differently. Your conversations deepen. Your decisions sharpen. You're not working harder, you're working wiser. 1 hour didn't just add to your day, it redefined it. Because in that 1 hour, you stepped out of reaction mode and into creation mode. You moved from survival to strategy. You stopped living life by accident and started living it by design. And when that shift happens, when your daily hour begins to stack up like bricks, you'll eventually look back and realize you built a foundation most people never dreamed of because they never made time for it. Success is built in silence, not in the noise of the crowd, not under the bright lights of public applause, and certainly not in the echo chambers of social media where everyone wants to be seen, but few are truly becoming. The real work of transformation, of building a life of significance, wealth, peace, and purpose happens away from the audience. It happens in quiet rooms, behind closed doors, in early mornings and late nights, when the rest of the world is too busy, too distracted, or too comfortable to do what it takes. That's the secret most people never understand. Everyone wants the result, the rewards, the recognition, but very few are willing to do the silent, consistent, unglamorous work that success demands. Think about nature. A seed grows beneath the soil before it ever breaks the surface. There's no fanfare, no one clapping for the seed as it pushes through the dirt. It grows in complete darkness, drawing strength from the soil, sending roots downward before it ever dares to reach upward. Success is like that. It begins internally, when you start to believe in a future no one else sees yet. It grows stronger when you practice, read, study, and build without posting, without announcing, without asking for applause. Silence becomes the womb in which greatness is nurtured, because in silence, your motives get refined, your commitment gets tested, your character gets developed. That's why so many people give up. They mistake the silence for failure, but in truth, it's preparation. I once knew a man who worked for nearly 3 years on his craft without telling anyone what he was building. While his friends went out partying every weekend, he spent his evenings after work learning code, designing small software tools, and improving his problem-solving skills. He never posted about it, never boasted. He simply worked, quietly, steadily. Most people assumed he wasn't doing much with his life, but one day, he launched a product that solved a simple but painful business problem. And in less than 6 months, he was generating more income from that software than he did from his full-time job. People said, "Wow, where did this come from?" What they didn't know was that success had been forming in silence for years. It wasn't overnight, it was invisible, but it was real, and when it was time to reveal it, it was undeniable. That's the trap of the modern world. We've confused visibility with value. We think that if people don't see what we're doing, it doesn't count. But that's false. The most powerful progress you'll ever make is often the kind no one else notices. You study a little more each day, and suddenly your thinking changes. You listen more deeply, and your relationships improve. You start waking up an hour earlier to reflect, to plan, and to prepare, and your entire direction in life shifts. But none of this shows up on a highlight reel. It's not flashy, it's not public, but it's potent. Silent growth always precedes visible success. Every great musician, speaker, athlete, or entrepreneur you admire has one thing in common. They all spent countless hours in rooms where no one was watching, no one was clapping, and no one even knew what they were doing. And it was in those hours that the difference was made. Consider the story of a young woman who wanted to become a public speaker, but she was terrified of speaking. She had a soft voice, zero stage presence, and was told early on she wasn't commanding enough to be in front of people. Instead of arguing, she went to work. Every single morning, she practiced in front of a mirror. She recorded her voice. She analyzed great speakers, not just for content, but for rhythm, tone, pauses, and presence. she joined a small local Toastmasters group, but didn't tell her friends or family. It took her 2 years of silent, consistent practice before she took her first paid speaking gig. Today, she speaks to thousands at conferences, and people ask how she got so naturally gifted. The truth is, she wasn't, but she became remarkable in silence. The silence gave her space to fail privately, improve deeply, and emerge authentically. The problem is that most people seek validation too soon. They want to be celebrated before they've even matured. But if you shine before you're ready, the light will burn you. That's why silence is essential. In the silence, you grow roots, you form identity, you develop a work ethic that doesn't rely on external praise. You build something no critic can take from you. So when the spotlight does come, you're not shaken, you're ready. And when success finally reveals itself, it has the weight and depth that only silence can produce. Because real success isn't built with noise. It's forged in discipline, fed with patience, and protected in quiet moments when the only person who believes in it is you. Routine beats motivation. That may sound like a contradiction in a world obsessed with inspiration and energy, but it's one of the truest principles of lasting success. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are fickle. They rise with the sun and fall with the mood. Some days you feel like attacking the day. Others, you'd rather hide under the covers. But a routine, a solid daily structure, doesn't care about how you feel. It's like a well-laid railroad track. Once you lay it down, all you have to do is keep the train moving. That's why the greats in every field, from business to sports to creative arts, don't depend on bursts of inspiration. They depend on the grind. They depend on habits. They depend on structure, because structure delivers results long after emotion wears off. You see, most people live their life chasing motivation like it's a spark they need to get started, but that's the wrong approach. Motivation is useful. Sure, it can ignite a decision, but it won't sustain your discipline. Think about the gym. In January, motivation is high. The gyms are packed. New shoes, new gear, new playlists. But by March, empty treadmills. The same people who started off with fire lost it, not because their goals were wrong, but because they didn't build systems. The ones who stay consistent are not the ones who are always motivated. They are the ones who have made it part of their daily rhythm, like brushing their teeth. It's no longer about hype, it's about habit. I once coached a young man who wanted to build a writing career. He had talent, but he kept waiting for the right moment to write, when he felt inspired, when life calmed down, when his mind was clear. And so, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and he had very little to show for it. He came to me frustrated, thinking maybe he just wasn't cut out for it. I told him, "Your problem isn't writing, it's waiting." I challenged him to write for just 30 minutes a day, no matter how he felt, no matter how busy life got. He resisted at first, thinking quality would suffer, but he committed. Within 6 months, he had completed more work than he had in the past 3 years, not because he felt more motivated, but because he no longer relied on motivation at all. The daily routine took over. The act of sitting down to write became automatic, like muscle memory. And when that happened, the breakthroughs began to appear, not overnight, but inevitably. Routine is a form of self-respect. It says, I care enough about my future that I won't leave it to chance. The discipline to stick to a routine, even a simple one, is often the dividing line between people who create results and people who create excuses. You can build an empire with a dull axe if you sharpen it daily, but you can't build anything if you wait for the perfect mood to strike before you swing. That's why routine is so powerful. It removes the emotional negotiation from your day. You no longer have to ask yourself, do I feel like doing this? The answer becomes irrelevant. The only question is, what does my routine require today? And when that becomes your new mindset, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that traps so many people. I remember a story about a violinist in New York City who became world class, not because of talent alone, but because of routine. Every morning before sunrise, she practiced. Rain or shine, tired or energized, inspired or bored, it didn't matter. 3 hours in the morning, every morning. She didn't post about it. She didn't talk about it. She just did it. After years of this, she landed a spot in one of the top orchestras in the world. When someone asked her how she stayed motivated, she smiled and said, "I'm not motivated, I'm disciplined." That's the truth most people miss. Motivation is loud. Discipline is quiet. Motivation shows up for the party. Discipline builds the house. And here's what most people fail to see. Routine isn't just about productivity, it's about identity. When you build a routine, you start to see yourself differently. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. You develop a personal rhythm that begins to shape your confidence, your pace, your clarity. Your mind no longer gets overwhelmed by what you could do because your routine narrows your focus to what you will do. And over time, that consistency builds trust in yourself, the kind of trust that can't be faked, the kind of trust that grows stronger every day you follow through on what you said you would do. Use the hour to become more valuable. That's the simple truth that separates the average from the exceptional. It's not just about working harder. It's about becoming more, becoming a person who brings more to the table, who can solve bigger problems, make better decisions, and influence greater outcomes. The market pays for value. Life rewards value. Relationships are built on value. But value is not something you stumble into by accident. It's something you build, hour by hour, day by day, choice by choice. You don't need a dozen extra hours. Just one focused, uninterrupted hour a day, used deliberately, can change the entire trajectory of your life. Because in that 1 hour, you can learn what others ignore, practice what others postpone, and prepare in ways others don't even think about. That hour, used wisely, becomes the compound interest of your character and competence. Most people misunderstand this idea. They think that time itself is valuable. But time is only valuable if it's invested. And there's a big difference between spending time and investing time. You can spend an hour watching meaningless videos, scrolling endlessly, numbing your mind, and the hour disappears, taking nothing with it. Or you can invest that same hour in reading, studying, training, writing, thinking, activities that stretch you, improve you, elevate you, and now that hour plants seeds for future harvests. The secret is not just to pass the time, but to use the time to pass yourself to the next level. That's how you become more valuable. The key is to stop thinking of the hour as a block on the clock and start thinking of it as a builder of your future worth. Let me show you what this looks like in the real world. I once met a man who worked in a warehouse. Humble job, steady hours, not glamorous, not high paying. But every lunch break, while others were chatting or scrolling, he read. Not novels, books on business, leadership, sales, communication. Sometimes it was a podcast. Other times it was reviewing notes he had taken from a seminar. An hour a day. Nothing flashy, nothing public. After a year, he understood business operations better than his own manager. After 2 years, he had developed a plan for a distribution system that saved the company money. He was promoted, not because he begged, but because he became more valuable. 3 years in, he started his own logistics consulting company. Today, he advises major clients on how to run more efficient supply chains. That all started with 1 hour a day. Not 10, not 20, 1. And that hour had no magic in it, except for the decision to use it to grow. Value is not something you're born with. It's something you build. You don't need a fancy degree or a family name. You need a routine. You need a rhythm. You need a reason that's bigger than comfort and a commitment that's stronger than your distractions. That's what separates those who rise from those who remain. Too many people are waiting for opportunities to come before they prepare, but the world doesn't work like that. Opportunity shows up when you're already ready, and if you're not, it passes you by. That's why you use the hour to sharpen your tools before the tree appears, because when it does, you'll be able to cut it down while others are still fumbling with dull blades. That's not arrogance. That's preparation. That's what makes you valuable. The hour you reclaim and repurpose each day becomes your secret edge. It's where you master a new skill, develop your communication, study financial literacy, rehearse your pitch, analyze trends, improve your mindset. Whatever field you're in, there's always a next level, and the next level always requires a better version of you, not a busier version, a better one, more thoughtful, more informed, more resourceful. That's what makes people seek you out, refer you, promote you. People don't follow titles. They follow competence. They follow confidence. And both of those are forged in the hour you spend building yourself up when no one else is watching. A woman I once spoke to started using her evening hour after putting her kids to bed. She had a full-time job, a family, and 100 reasons to be tired. But she wanted more. Not just more money, but more capacity, more peace of mind, more impact. She didn't start with big goals. She started by reading 10 pages a night, journaling her thoughts, watching a video course in small increments. After 6 months, her thinking shifted. She stopped complaining about her circumstances and started crafting a strategy to change them. She picked up project management skills, got certified, and applied for a higher paying position in another company. Within a year, she had doubled her income, not because she begged for a raise, but because she had become the kind of person who earned it. And it all started with the hour she used, when others would have said, "I'm too tired," or "It's not the right time." Protect this hour like a sacred appointment, not just any hour, but that hour, the one you've set aside for yourself, for growth, for vision, for becoming. Because if you don't guard it, the world will take it, the phone will ring, the inbox will scream, the kids will knock, the news will shout, and before you know it, the hour you promised yourself has disappeared, stolen by everything and everyone who decided their urgency was more important than your transformation. That's why you have to treat this hour with the seriousness of a boardroom meeting, with the reverence of a spiritual ceremony, because it is sacred. It's the hour where you step away from the demands of life and step into the design of your future. 1 hour, quiet, focused, and undisturbed, can become the very thread that ties together your dreams and your discipline. Most people treat their time casually, and because of that, they live casual lives. But those who rise, those who build something meaningful, they treat an hour with intention. They put it on the calendar. They don't wait for spare time. They make time. And once that time is made, they defend it with all the strength they have. You wouldn't cancel a doctor's appointment if your health depended on it. You wouldn't show up late to an interview if your future depended on it. So why treat your own development, your mind, your body, your spirit as something optional? That's what separates the committed from the curious. Curious people dabble, committed people schedule. They say, "This hour belongs to me," and they keep that promise. I once met a businesswoman who built a 7-figure company while raising 3 children. When I asked her how she managed it all, she smiled and said, "I protect my sacred hour." Every morning, from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., that hour was hers. No emails, no texts, no news, just planning, journaling, reading, and reviewing her goals. She said that hour grounded her, reminded her of her direction, and set the tone for the rest of her day. "It's not about the time," she told me. "It's about the clarity it gives me." That's the power of a sacred hour. It's not just what you do in it, it's what that hour does to you. It centers you, it sharpens you, it fuels you, and in a world that is constantly trying to scatter your focus, that hour becomes your anchor. But here's what's important. You don't need to spend it perfectly. It doesn't have to be filled with some grand productivity ritual. It just needs to be yours. Yours to think, yours to write, yours to study, yours to stretch. Because the moment you make space for yourself, you begin to hear your own thoughts again. You begin to listen to the whispers of your intuition, which get drowned out by the chaos of the day. That's when ideas begin to emerge. That's when solutions begin to show up. That's when the fog begins to lift. Most people walk through their days reacting to people, to problems, to pressures. But the person who protects 1 hour for themselves gains the power to respond, to lead, to move with clarity instead of confusion. I knew a young man who was struggling to get his life together. His finances were a mess, his relationships strained, and his health declining. He kept saying he didn't have time, but what he really lacked was commitment. One day, after a tough conversation, he made the decision to set aside 1 hour each evening. No distractions, no exceptions. He called it his hour of mastery. In that hour, he studied budgeting, worked out, read personal development books, reflected on his actions. It wasn't perfect. Some nights he was tired, some nights it felt useless, but he kept showing up, and something began to shift. Within 6 months, he had paid off a chunk of debt, lost weight, and restored a broken relationship with his brother. It wasn't magic, it was the sacred hour. That one intentional commitment created a ripple that touched every other part of his life. And it's not just about achievement, it's about alignment. This hour becomes the time where your values, your actions, and your goals finally meet, where you stop running and start realigning, where you remember what matters, where you reclaim your power. Because every day you give pieces of yourself to the world, your energy, your attention, your presence. But if you don't give any of that back to you, you start to run on empty. Protecting this hour isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's how you fill up so you can pour out. It's how you renew your mind, recenter your spirit, and recalibrate your direction. Life won't hand you extra time. You have to carve it out, defend it, and honor it. That's what makes it sacred. The compound effect will blow your mind, not because it's complicated, but because it's deceptively simple. It's the quiet force working behind the scenes while most people are chasing instant wins and dramatic breakthroughs. The compound effect is the principle that small, consistent actions repeated over time create extraordinary results. Not overnight, not next week, but eventually, undeniably. It's the reason some people seem to pull ahead in life, not with giant leaps, but with steady steps. You don't need to do everything today. You just need to do something every day. And if you do that long enough, the results will appear, not in addition, but in multiplication. The problem is, most people quit too soon because the early rewards are invisible. They look at the scale and it hasn't moved. They look at the bank account and it hasn't grown. They look at their efforts and they don't yet see a return. But that's only because they don't understand what's happening under the surface. The compound effect is like planting bamboo. For years, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you feed it, you protect it from the elements, and still, all you see is dirt, no sprout, no growth, no sign of progress. Most people would give up, assuming the seed is dead, but if you keep going, something astonishing happens. In the 5th year, that bamboo can grow up to 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Not because it suddenly decided to grow, but because all those years underground, it was developing the root system necessary to sustain that kind of explosive growth. That's how the compound effect works. Success is quiet at first, boring, unseen. But when it breaks through, it turns heads. It creates momentum that can't be stopped. Let me give you a real-world example. I once knew 2 men who worked in the same office, started at the same time, earned the same salary. They were friends, both with similar intelligence and potential, but they made very different choices with their time and energy. The first man spent his evenings watching TV, relaxing, and occasionally scrolling through motivational videos. He figured he'd eventually make a move when things felt right. The second man made a quiet decision. Just 45 minutes a day, he committed to learning something new: financial education, public speaking, leadership, sales. Not hours, just a small window. He didn't make a big show of it. No announcements, no social media posts, just quiet, steady growth. After 1 year, no real difference. After 2 years, the first man laughed and said, "You're still doing that little study thing?" But by the 3rd year, the second man was promoted. By year 5, he had left the company and launched a consulting firm. The first man stayed in the same position, not because he lacked talent, but because he misunderstood the power of consistency. What's dangerous is how subtle the compound effect is on both ends. It can work for you, but it can also work against you. Skip the gym one day and nothing changes. Eat a donut once and your health doesn't collapse. But do that every day for a year and suddenly the clothes don't fit. The energy's gone. The mirror tells a different story. Same with finances. Skip saving for a few weeks. No big deal. Swipe the credit card here and there. Seems harmless. But those tiny decisions, stacked on top of each other, quietly pull your life in a direction you didn't intend to go. That's the silent danger of the compound effect. It works whether you realize it or not. It doesn't care about your intentions. It multiplies what you do, not what you wish you had done. Now, here's the part most people underestimate. The compound effect doesn't just apply to money or habits. It applies to character, to mindset, to relationships. Every time you choose patience over anger, honesty over convenience, generosity over selfishness, you're making deposits into the kind of person you're becoming. And those small choices, though easy to overlook in the moment, begin to shape your reputation, your influence, your peace of mind. The person who takes 5 minutes every morning to express gratitude is developing a heart that can't be shaken by circumstance. The person who reads a page a day is building a mind that can handle complex decisions. The person who saves $1 a day is creating a financial future that will be ready when others are panicking. That's the real miracle of the compound effect. It builds you from the inside out. And perhaps the greatest part of it all is this: anyone can use it. You don't need to be the smartest or the strongest or the fastest. You just need to be the one who stays consistent, who decides day after day to keep showing up, to keep planting, to keep investing, even when no one's clapping, even when no one notices, because one day they will. The harvest always reveals what was happening in the silence. The crowd only shows up when the bamboo starts rising. But the wise person knows the magic was never in the moment it sprouted. It was in the years spent building roots. So I leave you with this. Don't underestimate the small things. Don't overlook the daily disciplines, the quiet choices, the 5 minutes here, the $1 there, the 1 page, the 1 rep, the 1 hour. Because what you do in secret today shows up in public tomorrow. Success isn't built in a day, it's built daily. And when you finally arrive at that place people call overnight success, you'll smile because you'll know the truth. It wasn't overnight. It was the compound effect. Silent, steady, relentless, and it changed everything. Now the question is, what small choice will you make today and keep making that will change your life 10 years from now?